the VVN Music Podcast, Episode 5. Covering the veteran artists from pop, rock, soul, country, folk, and blues that influence today's music world, this is the VVN Music Podcast. Hi, and welcome to Episode 5 of the VVN Music Podcast, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial by going to audiotrial.com/VVN. I'm Roger Wink, and we're doing something a little bit different this week. Over the last few years, I've been privileged to conduct interviews with a wide variety of veteran artists, and the transcripts from those interviews have been published on VVNmusic.com. From time to time, we're going to take those original interview recordings and play them here on the podcast. And while the projects being discussed may not be current, the interviews regularly branch out into talk on their careers and provide a real window into the different artists. But before we get to the interview, I had the rare privilege on Saturday night of seeing one of the greatest voices of the last 50 years perform in concert. Aretha Franklin only does a handful of shows every year, and I think this was her fifth for 2015, and she doesn't even have any more scheduled at this time for the rest of the year, so to see her live isn't an everyday occurrence. Franklin played the Syracuse Jazz Fest, and to make things even more amazing, the festival is free. They've been putting this on for 33 years in Syracuse and have consistently brought in world-class entertainers from B.B. King to Dionne Warwick and beyond. This year saw Buckwheat Zydeco and Wynton Marsalis play on Friday night, and the great Boston area group Lake Street Dive play before Ms. Franklin on Saturday. Franklin is now 73 years old, and her voice remains an amazing instrument. She tore through a set that included all 6 of her hits from 1967, along with a smattering of newer material. Now, be forewarned, if you get to see Aretha, she has a very different way of putting on a show. She comes out and sings 6 songs before taking a 10 to 20-minute break while her band performs. She's then back for another half dozen or more tunes. And what a voice. She still hits the high notes on such classics as Think and Respect, yet can still bring it down for her soulful version of Bridge Over Troubled Water. As a matter of fact, one of the highlights of the night was her take on the Broadway classic My Cup Runneth Over, a song she recorded in the early 70s during the Young, Gifted, and Black sessions, but not released until a couple of years ago in a rarities package. If you ever have a chance to see Aretha live, jump at it. It's an experience you will never forget. Hey, we're all busy, and even those that like to read just can't seem to find the time in their day to do so, and that's why Audible.com is such a great service. Through Audible, you can download books and listen to them in your car while you're working, when you're out cutting the lawn, or just about anywhere. Author Fred Goodman has just released a new book on the controversial Alan Klein called The Man Who Bailed Out the Beatles, Made the Stones, and Transformed Rock and Roll. Along with those 2 bands, Klein also worked with the likes of The Who, Sam Cooke, Donovan, and the Kinks, teaching all of them how to not only be musicians but also businessmen. Klein, though, had his faults and has been blamed for everything from the breakup of the Beatles to taking money from the Stones. This new book tries to set the record straight on his business dealings and places Klein in the framework of the history of rock and roll. Now, you can listen to Alan Klein, the man who bailed out the Beatles, made the Stones, and transformed rock and roll for free through Audible.com. Just type in the address audibletrial.com/VVN to sign up for the 30-day free trial and receive your free audiobook. Plus, if that title isn't to your liking, they have over 150,000 other titles to choose from, including numerous books on various facets of music. Remember, that's audibletrial.com/VVN.
Take you home with me. I wanna be the
Last year, I had the pleasure of talking to two women who had me entertained throughout our interview. One, Susan Cowsill, was a member of her family's band, the Cowsills, and sang on such hits as Indian Lake and Hair. She has remained in music over the years and was a member of the Continental Drifters during the 1990s, along with playing with her own Susan Cowsill band. The other, Vicki Peterson, is a founding member of the Bangles, who have had such hits as Walk Like an Egyptian and Eternal Flame. She, too, was a member of the Continental Drifters, but that's not the band we're here to talk about. Cowsill and Peterson also played together as a duo under the name of the Psycho Sisters. For 20 years, they planned on putting out an album of their music, but it wasn't until last year that the album, Up on the Chair, Beatrice, was released by Rockbeat Records. It's a great disc full of songs that easily fit into the Americana genre and includes both originals and a few covers. Plus, not only are the two pseudo-related via their Psycho Sisters name, but they're also related in real life after Vicki married Susan's brother, John, who was also a member of the Cowsills family band. This interview was conducted by phone last year and a transcript published on VVN Music in November. Keep in mind that because this interview was done prior to the start of our podcast, the sound is of a somewhat lesser quality as it wasn't originally meant for broadcast. Congratulations on the new album. It seems though like you guys were trying to rival the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds as far as the album with the longest gestation period.
Yeah, or Smiley Smile.
Yeah, that's what we were doing, huh, Vicki?
Yeah, that was our plan. That was our plan all along, actually.
Why did it take so long, and why now?
Go on, Vic. I'll let you start this one.
Okay. Why did it take so long? Because it did. It was one of those things that was always floating in somewhere near the backs of our minds throughout the 90s when we weren't performing as much as the Psycho Sisters. We were inside the Continental Drifters and sort of being Psycho Sisters inside a larger animal that was the Continental Drifters. Kind of like a parasite, as it were.
The psychocytes, the psychoparasites.
Psychocytes. And it wasn't until there was a moment when Susan was sort of in between her solo records and the Bangles were kind of winding down what we had just done, and we sort of said, hey, you know what? I mean, we could do the record, and it's the record, meaning the Psycho Sister record that we never made in the early 90s. And we just figured out how to do it, and we started a Kickstarter campaign.
We figured it was now. I would say it was now or never, but that's really not true. Yeah, we just would have delayed it. We wanted to get it in between, like Vic said, our next whatever's coming, and everything happens in its own time. And this was time for Beatrice.
That's right.
Did the songs change much between the way you envisioned them in the early 90s and what you finally got down on record now?
Not to me. We only, this is Susan, by the way, we had only really performed these songs with a couple of guitars. So adding the instrumentation in full band was a new twist on the songs to begin with. So in a way, we didn't really know, they were embryos even when we were performing them as the Psycho Sisters. They weren't fully fleshed out recordings or arrangements or what have you. So I don't think for me, what I was expecting, I didn't know. It was kind of like, it's like a drawing that you sit down and, a painting. You don't know really how it's going to come out because it's art.
I was just going to say that when Susan and I sat down to kind of go over the songs or try to remember what we had done, and we're just kind of combing through to see what songs we might want to record, it was kind of funny almost how reflexive our memories were as far as the harmonies, who sang what, where, how. That didn't change much. That was like,
yeah, that was the nucleus of it. Yeah,
he arranged those vocals, and that's how they were in 1992, and that's how they were
The only thing that really changed about the songs was the instrumentation. The arrangements are basically the same too, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I've obviously I've heard the album, but I have not seen the liner notes on it. Who produced the album?
We did.
We did.
The Susan and Vicki Club. That's right. The Psycho Sisters, produced by.
What about as far as your other musicians? Were they all people you'd worked with before, or were they session players, or?
Both.
Well, yes and yes.
Only because, yes, they were all people we'd worked with before, and they've all done sessions. So
right.
We lucked out in that Susan and I are both married to drummers, and that came in handy. Although we had to figure out who was going to play on what, and that was kind of fun. And then the bass player came from a combined Cowsill's Bengal world. His name is Derek Anderson. He's phenomenal, and he was willing to fly into Louisiana to do the sessions for a few days. He had a blast. And then Susan found the string players and our
keyboard player.
Mm-hmm.
They're all from the keyboard player and the cellist and the violinist are all from New Orleans. And all of guys that I've worked with, the cello and violinist are my auxiliary, Susan Cowsill band. They're in my band. And the keyboard player has been a dear friend, and I've worked with him throughout the years, too. So we had a really nice combination.
Now, my understanding is you met each other in the late 70s initially, correct?
Correct. That was the initial
sighting.
Yes.
You worked together in various capacities until the late 80s, early 90s, and that's when the Continental Drifters came along?
Oh, no. Well, we actually hadn't worked together. We had been friends, but we had not worked together per se. We had started writing before the Continental Drifters. Vic, did we play? I guess we did play out a little bit before the Drifters.
Oh, we did, yeah. We did.
Yeah.
But literally, 4 times.
Literally 4 times, yes.
Yeah.
So, we started out as friends, and the natural progression due to our various combined natures and businesses was to make it a musical friendship as well. And that's when we wrote those silly, wonderful songs. But got really scooped up into the Drifters rather quickly after we decided we were serious about being Psycho Sisters.
Yes.
I have to ask, is there any significance to the name of the album?
Vicki?
The name of the album?
Oh, the album.
That?
Well, we can start with the name of the group. I'm kind of familiar with that story, but...
Well, you know what? It's kind of one of those inside jobs.
Okay.
It's it's one of those you had to be there. In fact, we were thinking of calling the album "You Had to Be There," but instead we called it "Up on the Charity Trip."
It has significance to us.
It does have significance.
Personal significance.
We just didn't think it would matter to anybody else. It has. Go ahead.
The harmonies on the album are beautiful. Is that something that came naturally to both of you, or was it something you worked on over time, or?
Yeah, that's a God-given reality. Vicki obviously comes from a family band in that Debbie, her sister, is in it as well, and I think they've been singing together. They had that sibling harmony thing. And obviously, I come from a similar background, and so our knowledge and sensibility and natural ability, thankfully, to sing harmony separately was in place. And we just, when we first sang together, we were both a wee bit shocked at how seamless it was, and very much like a sibling harmony thing, And as far as I know, we're not related physically. but I wouldn't put it past my folks.
Possibly other, right? You never know.
But no, it was a very natural, just one of those really, oh yay, listen to how fun we sound, and it really was startling, really.
And it came
because
together
I hadn't
quickly.
sang with, really quickly, and I mostly sang with my brothers. My mother was the only other woman that I had vocalized with, so it was like, wow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the album does cover a wide variety of genres, but musical genres. Yet it all seems very cohesive to me.
Nice.
Well, we planned it that way.
I was just going to ask, was that intentional, or did it just fall together that way?
No.
We don't do anything intentionally.
Very little was intentional.
Yeah, I mean, did you do that on purpose, Vic, and not tell me?
Yeah, it was intentional.
No, it's we lucked out. Honestly, we really did. The songs are a collective of who we are and where we came from, and seriously, I don't know about you, Vicki, but making a record, certainly back when I was a kid, it was a real big deal to make sure nothing strayed. You didn't want to get too eclectic. In fact, it wasn't allowed in the 60s. What? No, really. No, remember back in the 60s where they'd get a guy to write the same song over and over again for you so you could have 3 hits.
Yeah, you're talking about like the mid 60s and the pop.
Yeah, where, so the diversity of our music, I hadn't really even noticed that it was so until everybody started kind of pointing it out, and yet that it flowed. So that was a happy accident.
Never, never, boys. So sad and tender. Never, never, boys. Tell me that.
Well, even some of the songs, the one that kind of jumps to my mind is Never Never Boys, and it has like this kind of jangly power pop sound, but at the same time, I could hear a country singer like Martina McBride singing that song.
Can you arrange that?
I wish I could.
Can you call her first? It's true, and I think both Susan and I, we kind of veer into country completely accidentally, and that's a very nice line to walk, the pop, jangle pop and country, because that sort of sits nicely with a lot of places that I've been and music that I like. So
same.
Yeah, so I think that's not too far afield. The story I like to tell about Never Never Boys is it's a song that I wrote with Bob Cowsill. You have another Cowsill contribution for this record. Many years ago, it was 1991, I think. We wrote the song together, and at the time, I remember him saying, "Oh well, you can't sing this song. You're gonna have to give it to." And this is how long it was. I think he literally said like Tiffany. It was that long ago.
Are you kidding me?
I think he did, but even though she wasn't exactly contemporary. I think it was like a couple years past Tiffany. But yeah, that's what he was saying.
Debbie Boone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, almost right. And I heartily disagreed with him. I said, no. We're singing this song. I don't care that we're 30. We're singing the damn song.
Yeah, we were too old back then.
Yeah, exactly. And which cracks me up because I look at it now, and one of my favorite things about it is the fact that Susan is singing the song on the record, and it has this wonderful, to me, mixture of lyrical discussion about a man who will not grow up, but sung by a woman who obviously has grown up, but maybe she hasn't because she can't say no to him. So it's kind of it's more to me that one has matured nicely.
I was going to say, was Bob saying that somebody in their 40s couldn't find another guy in their 40s who didn't grow up? I mean, really?
He didn't go. Yeah, right. Well, this could be a very long conversation with Bob if we really wanted to have this conversation. Excuse me.
Now, you mentioned that you wrote that one with Bob. The majority of the songs on the album, though, were co-written by the two of you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I know that the opener and the closer were exceptions. How did you come to decide to record Heather Says, since it comes from an earlier time?
Heather says that inside each of us. Here is allowed just one friend and just one friend alone. That's what best friends are for.
Well, I think, when we were, first started getting together, Vicki was a Cowsill fan. Let's just admit that right now.
I was. Yes, I was.
Yes, you was. She still is. And when we were cycling around back in the late '80s, she was just, God, wouldn't it? Wow, that would be a fun song to do. So we started just doing it in our shows, on all 4 of our shows, and and it sounded so amazing. And I loved that song because it was personally written for me upon request, and it was a big favorite of our audience when we would play it. And it seemed clear once we got around to Beatrice that was going to be a shining star, and I think it came out really amazing. And it was a cover, so you got to you always hope that if you're not doing something as good as, better, or different, then there's no real purpose in it really to record them, in my opinion. And I think we scored pretty big on that one.
We did claim that one, even though the Cowsill's version of it is absolutely stellar. Susan was 11, I think, when she recorded it. But it is just the arrangement and everything is just fabulous and a little daunting. But we did make some changes, and not so much in the chord structure, although there's a couple of musical left turns. But, we kind of added a spookier quality, I think, to it by some of the background vocals that we put on. Literally, that was so impromptu. Remember that, Susan? We were just saying, okay, more.
Yes.
Okay, let's just do this. Okay, it was we did it in one session. It was really fast, and it kind of added this slightly darker color to this wonderful
which I love.
song.
It's my favorite version.
And John hears it and goes, "You're doing it wrong."
Right, I know. And do you tell him, yes, we know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's intentional, John.
I need to ask kind of a side question here, since you brought up that you were somewhere around 11 when you recorded it. I read somewhere, Susan, that you were the youngest singer to sing on a top 10 record when the Cowsill's Indian Lake was a hit. And that made
true.
That made me think. Did you not sing on the Rain in the Park and other things?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not sing on. I joined the band after that album was recorded. I joined right when it hit. Of course, that was my perfect timing. Don't do the work, but don't bake the bread, but go ahead and eat it with the game. But I was Indian Lake was my first album, and that is true. And as far as I know, I haven't been usurped in my title yet. So I think it's the youngest female performing artist on a top 10 rock and roll record is my title.
I didn't mean to get away from the new album, but that just struck me because I could have,
That's kind of cool.
You're not the only cuddly toy that was ever enjoyed by any boy.
What made you decide to record the Nilsson song, Cuddly Toy?
It was another song that we had been doing in our previous 4 shows.
Sorry.
And then, Susan, you pick it up from there.
Okay. That is the funniest thing. We've never said it quite like that before, but we're going to from this point on. Our career, our 4 shows.
Our entire performing career.
We were when we were recording in Maurice, Louisiana at Dockside. The week we started recording was the week Davy Jones passed away. And he was my dream boy. I loved Davy Jones very much. I was that girl. I was in the 16 magazines with him. I had that one extra edge on the rest of the United States.
Yes. None of the rest of us were on the cover with Davy.
Yeah. But I was absolutely in love with him when I was a kid and knew him and that was a tough one. And so in honor of Mr. Jones and his passing and our devotion to him, we decided to cover it. And as Vic said, we had been doing it during our vast career of our 4 shows, so it was a natural thing to do.
And we love Harry Nilsson big time.
And we love Harry Nilsson. Yeah, I mean, that was just a bonus.
You left me this painting, thanks a lot. Well, you left me this painting, and it's all that I got to remember you by.
What was the background on the song This Painting? Was there really a painting?
There was a painting.
Victoria.
There was a painting. And the story is mainly fictional, but there was a kernel of truth which seems to occur in many songs that I write. But this was my fiancé at the time. We were getting ready to take that big step and move in together, and he had this painting that was done by a friend of his, and it was in his house. And I was like, this is all great, and I've got a place for your recording gear, and this is all really going to be... You're not bringing that, are you? We're not bringing that. It was that classic, no. No, it's just no. And you know, we had a little discussion, and I won. And
that's one of those things where you go, that's going in your office.
That's going in the shed.
I have an honorary place in the garage.
In your office in the shed. But so there was a painting, and it was a hideous fat lady in a chair, and and so then I kind of constructed a fantasy around it. It wasn't the story itself is fictional, but the feeling about the art was the same.
Nicely done, Vicki.
It's not your fault, it's true. You've got your work cut out for you.
Okay, I want you to fess up now. Who's Danny?
Oh.
Who's Danny? I'll give you his name and address.
Give Danny, serve him up on a platter, Susan. Come on.
Danny is a friend of ours from New Orleans who had an illustrious career as a young rogue. And when God, how many years ago was that? That was 20-something years ago. Mm-hmm. And you know, he was a ladies' man, and things got a little confusing and convoluted and complicated.
He didn't keep track
found it
properly.
Amusing. What?
He didn't keep track properly.
He didn't keep track properly, but they did.
Yeah.
You know, obviously both of you have had long, very successful musical careers, and you have seen all the changes that have been going on in the world of music. Is there particular challenges you're finding right now to getting your new music out there?
Go ahead, Vic, I'll let you take that one.
Okay. The challenge of getting the music out there, it's actually easier than ever to get your music out into the world. To have it heard above the din of everybody else and their dentist, who is also making a record, is a challenge.
Oh, that's funny.
Because it's just because it is available to everybody, and so in one sense, that's a beautiful thing. Like, art is available to everyone. In the other sense, it's difficult for us to value things or to find a way to place values on what is actually worth your time. And our time is becoming very, very precious and crunched because of all these other things that we're filling our days with these days. And so it is difficult for a band, you know, like ours, who, for all intents and purposes, are independent. We're working with a label, in partnership with a label for this release. But really, Susan and I have been, you know, as much as involved in the, you know, workings and promotions and the machinations of getting this record out to the world as anybody has. And So you do a lot more business than you used to as an artist. As an artist, you used to, you'd be home and they'd hand you a list, and here's press day, and here's this, and here's this. But because of how long we've been doing it and how many friends, thank God, we have in the business, it's been, we've been very involved in our own getting this record heard. And kind of, on one hand, I really like that, because it feels like kind of a moment of fruition, where it's like, okay, we are now taking that moment where I'm calling my best friend who writes for, LA Weekly, and I'm going to tell him that this and this and this is happening, and
right.
It's so it's been very cool on that level, and yet it's hard to, But then you go, so how's the record selling? And you go, I have no idea.
Right, and it's we're working in a much gianter universe of record industry and record and the world is so much bigger. I mean, when I was a kid putting out records, there was a finite amount of bands and labels. Literally a finite amount, you know what I mean? And there just isn't anymore. It's a whole different ballpark. The game's the same, the basics. We have the bat, the ball, but it's a whole different. Yeah, a lot more players, and
and the rules keep changing.
Mm-hmm. And the rules keep changing.
Do you like the ability
exactly.
to interact more with fans and so forth via social media?
It is a very handy tool, that is for sure. And the social media is akin to the fan club. It's a friend of fan club.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I'm a people person, and I enjoy, but always have, being able to connect to whoever's listening to our music. I find it rewarding to physically and visually and personally meet people who are moved by what you do. It's very inspiring. It's like, oh, okay. I'm actually, not only expressing myself and taking care of a personal need, but there is a service being performed here, because it's helping somebody else. The song I wrote that helped me feel better, or got out some aggressive situation, also works vicariously for the listener, and that's pretty cool. So having more personal interaction with people and hearing that kind of feedback is.
Any plans to tour behind the album?
Oh man, we're going.
I
was just going to say something. We have lots of plans. We had a plan to make a record once, didn't we, Vic?
Yeah, we did. So we've got a tour plan for 2023.
Yeah. I think we're kind of running out of that room, honey.
That kind of leads to the next question, which is, do we have to wait 20 years for another album?
I think that. Hold on, let me do a little math. Nah.
I think we better get on this right now, Susan.
Yeah, I think if we have to wait, we're all screwed. That's what I think. You can quote me. No, we are going to be far more judicious with our time, aren't we, Vic?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are going to make a final Psycho record.
our first and final.
We're only making a debut and a farewell record. That's from us.
Well,
that's it. That's the span of our career.
That means only one major farewell tour, then, I guess.
There you go.
It's too funny.
And then we have a reunion tour after that.
Right. Oh, this is good
Susan, now you still have your own band, correct?
I do. I mean, loosely put, as Russ and I have been touring as a duo mostly recently, because financially it's a more beneficial thing to do. But I do have a great band based out of out of New Orleans. That whenever we can put it together to make it feasible for everybody, I use those guys. And I'm always writing, and definitely actually going to be making another record probably in this coming year.
If I remember correctly, it was with that band that at one point you were doing monthly shows where you were recreating classic albums.
Yeah, well, it wasn't with the actual band that I have now. I mean, I live in New Orleans. We're one big giant band in New Orleans that just kind of plays with we it's the circle game, you know. But yes, I was doing a series for almost 10 years, once a month, doing a classic vinyl record performance, and that was really awesome. We still do them. I just don't put myself on the grind of having to do one once a month, because that became crazy after about 9 years. But it's fun. There will be. I think we're going to be doing the Grateful Dead, so I'll be leaving town for that one. Just kidding. It's going to become like Ringling Brothers Barnum. It's like Susan Cowsill presents, but I won't be there.
I take it you're not a Grateful Dead fan.
Oh, you know, I can be twisted. My arm can be twisted to be a Grateful Dead fan for an evening.
It's like the old joke, what did the Grateful Dead fan say when he ran out of pot? Wow, this music really sucks.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, I really want to thank you both for taking the time to talk about this and the new album. I really do think it's a really, really good piece of music.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time and helping us get the word out about Miss Beatrice. And Vic, it's always good to talk to you.
Not only did Susan and Vicki put out their Psycho Sisters album last year, but they're also part of a brand new release, Drifted in the Beginning and Beyond, by the Continental Drifters. The new 2-CD set collects music from throughout the Drifters' history and across their various lineups. We'll be back soon with another edition of the VVN Music Podcast. For the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues, check in at vvnmusic.com. And if you have any comments or questions about the website or this podcast, please send them to vvnnetwork@gmail.com. Our theme music is performed by Yahar. This program was recorded on July 22nd, 2015, and is a production of the VVN Network. Copyright 2015.